did not have the ability to make decisions on day-to-day things, on eating or keeping herself clean or getting up, getting moving, and she just could not do it anymore.
About age 61, she started showing signs of problems. We didn't think a whole lot about it. We discarded most of that as so-called senior moments, you know, where you forget things. But it became apparent that there was probably more to it than that.
I came home with a headache from work, went to bed, got up in the evening, watched a University of Dayton basketball game, had dinner with my wife, and do not remember any of it. Could not tell you where I lived, phone number, addresses, the name of my grandson.
I remember her forgetting things, you know, talking to her on the phone from Illinois, and we would talk for a half an hour or so, and then we'd hang up. I'd tell her I love her and hang up, and she would call me right back and said that, I haven't heard from you in months. And I'm like, Mom.
The first thing I noticed was I came home from work one day and she was baking cookies, and they were haphazardly placed on the cookie sheet, which would not have been something she would have normally done.
With Dad, he began to have episodes where we weren't sure if he was in the present. His vocabulary was shrinking, lots of forgetfulness. Our mom was staying pretty stable in her cognitive abilities.
Well, he's always had a bad temper. This isn't anything new, but it was so over the top. I should have realized it was something more, but I just chalked it up to old age.
These people are talking about much more than the common behaviors of old age. What they are describing are the signs and symptoms of Alzheimer's disease. Unlike other diseases, the road to diagnose Alzheimer's is exhausting because there is no one simple test to detect it. Once you finally have the diagnosis, the treatment plan is speculative at best. It's natural for the loved one and their family to be riddled with uncertainty. Usually the first question they ask is, what can I expect? Alzheimer's disease is the most common cause of dementia, affecting 10% of those age 65 or older, and nearly 50% of those 85 or older. 4.5 million Americans have Alzheimer's disease. 500,000 of them are diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's disease, which strikes at an unusually early age of 60 or under, and about 7% of early onset cases are inherited. Because Alzheimer's is such a progressive disease, the brain can be affected up to 20 years before the first symptoms appear. These early symptoms don't always lead to a conclusive diagnosis, delaying proper treatment and a referral to a dementia specialist. Vicki is one of 12 kids who grew up on a farm in the Midwest. She was not living in her hometown when her 79-year-old mother started to show the symptoms of Alzheimer's. Vicki relied on her siblings for updates on her mom's condition.
When I moved back here, I didn't really actually know that she had Alzheimer's. You know, it was never really discussed as that. There was tons of denial for me because my mom, who took care of us all those years and provided, there was denial because how could this happen to her? After she had taken care of us, you know, there was denial, there was anger, there was a lot of emotions that now I'm just starting to come to terms with.
At only 49 and with no known history of dementia or Alzheimer's disease, Gary's life has forever changed since his diagnosis. Early onset Alzheimer's is particularly cruel because, as in Gary's case, it strikes in the prime of life, when a person's family and career are in full bloom. For the elderly, they lose memories of the past. Those like Gary have to overcome the challenge of losing their future.
You go, it can't be right, the diagnosis is wrong, you don't want to talk about it. You know, the family member wants to know, so you kind of tell them, and they don't want to talk because you don't want to talk.
That makes me feel so great. Thank you so much. Thank you. You know, isn't it funny when life takes you to your knees sometimes and nearly destroys you? Could be the same things that bring you to your highest purpose, your highest passion.
Jacqueline's mother was suffering from a heart condition. Her father was doing his best to care for her when Jacqueline saw that her father's role as a caregiver diminished to the point that she feared her mother would die. She had to intervene. Eventually, specialists found that both of her parents had Alzheimer's disease.
You know, I had two parents with Alzheimer's disease. One was so easy. Mom was sweet and lovely her whole life and sweeter and lovelier after. And Dad was challenging his whole life and even more challenginger, is that a word? After. And I couldn't believe how he could control it in front of the doctors. And my mistake was taking him to doctors that were not dementia specialists. I was taking him to his doctor who'd known him 20 years, who's saying, well, we've never seen your father be like that. He was always adorable in front of them. And, you know, what are you trying to pull here, girlie? And I didn't find out till much later that he told the doctor, oh, my daughter Jacqueline, you know, she just wants my money. Don't listen to what she says. And I'm thinking, I wish you had some.
You actually could have taped as an actual one. Alzheimer's Association, this is Shirley. How can I help you?
Somebody said, well, why don't you call the Alzheimer's Association? I said, well, he doesn't have Alzheimer's. He knows what he's doing. He is so manipulative. You know, what could they possibly know that all these other professionals, social workers, doctors, nurses, what could they possibly know that all these other professionals in this almost year haven't known? All right, I'll call them. Well, that was the call that turned my life around, because somebody showed me the 10 early warning signs. And I'm looking at these going, yeah. He's doing every one of them.
When you call us, certainly we have a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week helpline, because we know that caregivers don't work from 8:30 to 5. And it's always staffed with professionals. It's always a free call, and you can ask the most intimate of questions to that professional on the other line and get that kind of help you need. If you haven't, you know, your person, your loved one hasn't slept for 24 hours, and you have 5 minutes to midnight of free time and you need a question answered, you can pick up that phone and give a call. The type of phone calls we get, 99% of the time, the first thing that they say is, we've gotten this diagnosis, I don't know what this means for us, and I don't know what to do. And we try to, first and foremost, let them know that they're not alone.
Another community resource is your local aging and in-home services agency, where they will answer many of your questions and concerns.
Good morning, Aging and Home.
You would call the agency, ask for information and assistance, tell them what your need is. They'll take an application on the telephone and give a little personal information, you know, have it ready, your Social Security number, who's your doctor, what's your diagnosis, you know, what is the need. And then they will send that to case management, that referral, and then a case manager will contact you and actually make an appointment to come out and visit your home and see what is it that you do need. Because a lot of times what happens, you think you know what you need, and there's a lot of other things that the case manager sees when they get there that you didn't realize were even available or, you know, would be helpful to your situation.
What I'm hearing from you is that maybe your mother needs reminders to take a bath, to take her medications.
Many families also contact a geriatric care management company to help facilitate their needs, especially families who don't live near the one needing care.
Our role is not to replace family. The role is to supplement, to complement whatever resources they already have, to help them make educated decisions with their parents.
Overcoming the denial of a loved one diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease is a significant step forward. The next hurdle is working together as a family to develop a care plan. To develop a successful plan, someone in the family must take the lead. Diana left her hometown of Philadelphia after she married and started her own family and career, leaving her mom, Carrie, in her older sister's care. Years later, Carrie had a stroke, which led to Alzheimer's disease. Meanwhile, Diana's sister developed cancer and could no longer take care of her mother. By default, Diana had to step in and take charge.
My middle sister is 13 years older and my brother's 17 years older, I think was part of the problem. They were supposed to be handling her bills and taking care of her house, and they weren't doing either.
When Alan and Ted's parents started showing signs of dementia, they wasted no time. They immediately decided to work together, and in doing so, were able to quickly find specialists and plan a practical approach to their care.
Alan and I were able to sort of look at our parents through a different set of eyes and compare notes. Alan would be here at least every week, sometimes several times a week, and would see them sort of on a more day-to-day basis. I would see Mom and Dad either every week or every 2 weeks, and I would be able to say, oh my gosh, I've noticed this about Dad, there's been this change. And Alan would say, here's what I've noticed, and so we could compare notes. We had a bit of the close-up view and the more distant view, and that actually turned out to be pretty helpful.
My wife doesn't discuss it. The kids do, my parents do, even my father-in-law. We talk about it a lot because he's 82. And so he's in pretty good mind and shape compared to what, hopefully I see 82. But my wife will not discuss the disease. She does not go to any support groups as of yet. Just doesn't want to face the facts.
I think he needed to get through his own feelings about it first before he could come forward, to his girls and to the rest of the family. There was a lot of talk of it behind his back. I mean, it was something that was spoken about, but it was never something we spoke about to him.
Home, and there's no problem, but it may come a time in the future when it's not appropriate for her to live at home any longer. You may need.
Mary Thomas is an elder law attorney. When her mom, Wilda, was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, it was easier for Mary to plan her financial future. However, getting legal issues in order didn't make the emotional side any easier to deal with.
Being an only child, it was, fairly easy situation in that regard. But when you have multiple siblings, you are going to need someone to be in charge. Someone's going to need to be the decision maker, and they need to decide that among them early on.
Part of knowing what to expect as a caregiver is understanding the various stages of Alzheimer's disease. The Alzheimer's Association breaks them down into 3 basic levels: early, middle, and late stage. It's important to remember, though, that everyone goes through the stages in their own unique way. What should you expect during the early stage? It can last from 2 to 4 years. Symptoms could be a recent memory loss that can affect everyday activities like following a recipe or paying bills. They may get disoriented while driving to the post office or work. They may have problems learning new tasks and lack initiative to begin any activities at all. Along with these symptoms, you can expect a myriad of emotions.
Probably the hardest thing you have to face is the depression, because your whole life changes. I had no reason to get up in the morning anymore. I have no reason really to get dressed. The whole thing of I'm not providing for my family anymore. I no longer work. At the beginning, that was the real tough part. There was days I stayed in bed all day long. Once you get over that part of it, I'm active. I try to do more things. I've been helping my dad build a pole barn. I show dogs on the weekends. I babysit my 2.5-year-old grandson. So you gotta get more active and you get yourself in more routines. Still have the bad days where I don't get out of bed, don't answer the cell phone, so it happens. But I have a lot more good days than I do bad days as of right now.
Dad has always been one to have control, and he wanted control of everything, and now I think there's this portion of his life that he doesn't have control in, and that's an issue for him.
Come on, you can do it. I'm coming. You're coming.
What we call this is planning for incapacity. We know that your mother's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and right now she still understands how to carry out.
This early stage is the best time to start planning for the future. As a caregiver, you'll have more free time, and most importantly, you can include your loved one in the decision-making process. This will help you cope with the feelings of total responsibility and guilt.
Is the internet savvy?
Oh, yes.
Okay, because we have a website. One of the things in my initial assessment that as a care manager we do is to set goals and to make sure everyone around the table has the same goal. Sometimes they want to stay in their home as long as possible. Other times, they're very sociable individuals. They want that interaction with others, and they're ready to move. So identifying those goals from the start helps the caregiver and the client to know how to move forward and to find resources and start collecting information.
At the first sign, or even prior, because healthy adults need documents in place too, the primary document that you need is called a durable power of attorney, which allows another person, your agent, to speak on your behalf and to handle business and financial matters on your behalf. And there's a similar document for health care. You appoint someone to intervene on your behalf if you can't, as well as a living will, or also called an advance directive, which indicates what you want if you become in a position where it's a life-threatening condition and intervention would only prolong your death. Those documents need to be in place before you need them. And then if nursing home care is in the future, individuals need to make arrangements for financial coverage of the nursing home, whether they may need to apply for Medicaid or other veterans benefits, that sort of thing. And it can be very time-consuming to apply for some benefits. You need to have a lot of documentation in place. So again, you need to start working on that before you ever need it.
Also, keep in mind during this stage, as they slowly lose their ability to communicate with you, precious memories are lost forever. So make the most of your time together. Take a trip and visit friends and family, and of course, take pictures.
Right now, my dad's okay. I know eventually he won't be, but right now he is, and we can, within 2 years, we'll go to Disney World. He will see Anthony go to Disney and see Mickey Mouse. He will, he will go on vacations with him. He will, he will enjoy his grandson. He may not always remember that, but I know he's enjoying it.
You want to do it again?
She loved to do dishes. She loved to cook. She loved to cut coupons out of the newspaper. And I think the funniest and happiest time is when I brought her out to my house, and because I wanted to keep her entertained or, something to do all the time, because she was like that, I would have her do my dishes. I would pull every bit of dishes out of my cupboards and put them on the counter and let her wash my dishes, and she would do that for hours and hours and hours, and I would just like, wow, this is cool, Mom's here.
How about these? Can we put these in something? Yeah. Do you want me to put some water in that? Yeah.
As you go through all this, sooner or later you can decide, okay, what's my attitude going to be? Are we gonna worry and fret about what's been lost, or are we going to say, what do we still have, and can we still have good times with our mom? And we can.
I remember 2 or 3 days after the funeral, she had some questions for me, and she said, well, who's going to take care of me now that Dad's gone? And I said, well, you don't have to worry, Ted and I are going to take care of you. And she said, do I get to stay here? And I said, yes, absolutely, you get to stay here. She said, that's great, I love it here. And she said, do I have enough money to take care of things? I said, yes, don't worry about that. Everything's taken care of. And she seemed happy. Mm-hmm. I mean, after we reassured her that everything was going to be okay, and right now she's doing great.
The transition from early to middle stage Alzheimer's disease brings with it personality changes. This stage can last from 2 to 12 years. Your loved one may have trouble reading and writing and doing simple math problems. They could have confusion about time and place, night and day, or even past and present. They may start to wander or get lost quickly. They may not recognize family and friends. Incontinence may begin, and they may have trouble judging distances and heights. As a caregiver, you might start to feel overwhelmed. Make sure you maintain some of your own interests and activities. The break from each other will do you a world of good.
If you want to try to keep your person home as long as possible, which we certainly advocate, but we know with this disease process that 9.5 out of 10 people are going to have to utilize some type of a professional service. And if you start to utilize those things that are available in the community early enough, you can help keep your person home a little bit longer. You can help keep them healthier, keep their minds stimulated, keep their social skills stimulated.
You know, there are a lot of in-home services. I mean, it can be as simple as a companion, you know, to come in and help tidy up the house, you know, prepare a meal, just visit with them or take them shopping or whatever. Or it may be that they actually need help in setting up a doctor appointment, transportation, those types of things. You know, and a nurse, not a nurse's aide, but a nurse can come in and help with, like I said, the setup of medication, showers, baths, things like that, that it becomes really difficult for a family member to do.
More than 3,500 adult daycare centers exist in the United States, providing care for 150,000 older Americans each day. These centers provide much-needed services to address the early to late-stage needs of dementia patients. These facilities emphasize social interaction and cognitive stimulation while striving to maintain the dignity and respect for each person.
A lot of times when a caregiver brings their person here, they're dealing with a lot of guilt. So it's a big step to come even through our doors or to even call. So we understand that, and so that role reversal that takes place is very difficult as well. You know, whether they're a daughter and now they have to become the caregiver, or whether it's a wife and she has to become the caregiver, and so there's that role reversal. And that's a difficult thing to have to go through.
Our biggest thing is people become very protective when a person has Alzheimer's or dementia particularly, because sometimes personalities change, sometimes there are challenges with that. And the family sees this person as this woman sees her husband still as this strong man that provided for the family. And she doesn't want people to know that he is now maybe a little incontinent or things are changing. So letting people know that it's okay, we've seen it, we understand, and we're going to treat them with dignity and respect that they deserve.
One of our families said this is a safe haven, not only for the person, her father that she brings in, but also for herself, because she knows he's safe here, he's secure here, and he enjoys coming.
Wherever I may roam, or land or sea or foam, you can always hear me singing this song. Show me the way to go home, home, home.
Dick and Phyllis both have had successful careers. Dick worked as a journalist and a television news anchor. Phyllis was a teacher, community event organizer, and insurance agent. They raised 3 kids and have 6 grandchildren. Both were looking forward to retirement.
You just cannot get bogged down in this process and thinking about what would have been. Like anyone else, I never dreamed retirement would be this. You have your own idea of what you're going to do in retirement and things you might want to do. It's just a new game now, and you just deal with it. Daycare was a wonderful, wonderful help to me. It's very confining to be at home with an Alzheimer person as it progresses, just for all the reasons, but you know, things get on your nerves after a while. I thought I handled it fine, except you just can't do anything by yourself. I could not even go out and mow the yard, but she might go out the other door and be lost, or come looking for me, or not be there when I came in. and you had to take her with you every haircut, dentist, anything, because there wasn't any opportunity. She's always been a very social person, and the thing I would always tell people about my experience with adult daycare was that it was the sociability that I couldn't provide at home. I can cook and wash and handle some of the other chores that I never, in my wildest imagination, thought I'd be doing. However, it's just me, and you can't be sitting with them and talking 24/7. So getting the sociability, obviously it appealed to me to get away and do something that got my mind off of it, just an escape.
Everything changed. Her whole persona changed. She gained weight. This is a woman who doesn't eat. She gained weight. She's happier. She loves coming here. This is what she lives for. I mean, nothing happens on a weekend because we're not going to a day away. Monday morning, when I said, well, I got to go to work, that's it. She's up, ready, and here we are. And it makes so much of a difference for her to have a life. This is a life for her, whereas she didn't have a life before. It's different from the life she had, but now she has a life, and she considers this place her family.
She was always happier when I picked her up than when I took her. I mean, that had been a good experience. So I'm very keen on that. I do not understand why so many people don't use this type of service. There's cost involved, and I can understand that, but it's money well spent.
Once a month, they have a weekend where they can spend the weekend, and they have things that they do. Sometimes they even go on trips. So Mom came for her first respite, I think, a couple months ago. And it was the first time in 7 years that I had been away from her. So I had the weekend, I got the house clean. It was like 1999 again. But it was a break for me, and it was refreshing for her. When I came to pick her up, she was totally refreshed, and she said, "You can go again." And I thought, yeah, I can, But it worked for both of us, and it's much needed.
They see their loved one is happier when they pick them up. They sleep better at night. They're eating better because they're smelling the food cooking. And that's huge also. A lot of our people start to lose weight. They don't eat, or they're just not hungry, or whatever the reason. They smell the food cooking here. It stimulates the appetite. Everybody's sitting down in the dining room and eating. They're all talking, and it's a social occasion.
Considering my wife's age, the cost is in my mind. I mean, this could go on a long time. And so you have savings for retirement and your assets, but you start getting into a residential facility, and that sucks up a lot of money pretty quick.
And it's part of the problem also with being young is that my wife is back working. We no longer have insurance without her working. So here at the point in my life that I can take off and travel and do things, my wife has to work a normal job to support us with the insurance problem. So
You need to call your area agency on aging and your agency on in-home services. There might be some waivers, there might be some financial programs, there might be something that you could apply for, there might be some grants, you just don't know in your area what might be available, what programs that you can sign up for. It might be a long waiting list, but hey, get on it.
We have supplemental services provided through Family Caregiver, and that purchases some medical equipment. It's up to $500 limit. So we have purchased wheelchairs, quad canes, walkers. We've had minor home modifications, like if you wanted grab bars installed in a shower or tub, a raised toilet seat. We've installed ramps in people's homes for people that are wheelchair bound so they can get in and out of their homes.
It is inevitable that as the disease progresses, so does the stress level on the caregiver. At times there is guilt, loneliness, and even resentment. Some fear that they will get so sick that they won't be able to care for their loved one. Often there's even the added fear that they could die first. These feelings are common and perfectly natural. Most importantly, don't forget that you do not have to go through it alone. Some cope by journaling or through their faith. Many seek out local support groups or one-on-one counseling.
Just know that somebody else is going through it. You're not alone. It's the reason for the support group.
Sometimes we don't even talk about caregiving. You know, there's points that you get tired of hearing about caregiving, you know, when you're involved in it every day. And they don't want to talk about caregiving. You know, when they walk in the room, I've made a point of saying, how are you? Not how's your mom, how's your dad? How is the person you're caring for? It's how are you? Because that support group is all about them. And that's their time to relieve that stress.
And his whole thing was, no one's going to tell him to go someplace that he doesn't want to go. And so, how do you deal with that? You know, I know it's the disease, but how do you get them to do something for their own medical sake needs to happen? How do you make that switch?
You're gonna love, you're gonna hate, you're on a roller coaster of emotions. And when you finally realize, that's okay, how can you possibly be going through what you're going through and not have those emotions? And the support group will verify and validate for you that everybody else has got the same emotions, you're not the only horrible person for thinking them. Then you go, oh my gosh, I'm normal, yay.
My greatest thing lately has been that I found out that he can go to a daycare through the VA. It's just unbelievable. He had been getting some of his medicine through them, so it made things real easy because they told me he was already in the system, and I found out that the VA will pay for 3 to 4 days a week and 6 to 8 hours a day, and then I couldn't believe they came to pick him up.
Just because your disease doesn't show physically, it doesn't mean that it's not there.
Those in the early stages of the disease also need support. Imagine the emotions they are experiencing. When the loved one and the family are involved in some sort of support group, the communication within the family improves, and so does the caregiving.
You cry every now and then, you break down. You try to be strong in front of everybody else's eyes. And then when you're by yourself, you let it all out. You take long walks. You watch the cattle, you watch the pasture fields, you go on a trail ride with your mule. You just let it all out.
It crosses my mind every day. I can't say it's 24 hours a day, but it crosses my mind every day. There's I can't imagine feeling how he feels. You know, I see my son, and I'll know who he is, but I know he won't in the future, and that's hard.
Thank God I'm alive and I got another day and I still know who I am. You know, I still recognize my grandson.
One of the things that we did, I think that was very, very effective, was as a group of individuals with early stage Alzheimer's, we wrote a letter to the caregivers, to the family members, of some of the things that we feel that we're afraid to express individually to our family for fear of hurting their feelings or whatever. One individual said that the day that I was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease was the day that my life as I knew it ended. I mean, that was a very, very strong statement. And I got that person to elaborate on that, and what they said was, you know, my family had a certain amount of respect for me in the standpoint of allowing me to make decisions, to give input, you know, but it was like the day that I was diagnosed that I was now no longer competent, that I was no longer able to express my feelings or make decisions about my life, that I didn't know what I was talking about anymore.
As the disease progresses, you will notice behaviors that would normally be embarrassing, such as outbursts or inappropriate social behaviors. One of the most difficult behaviors to deal with is combativeness. When this happens, stop and back up. Change the activity, such as suggest a dance or a hug as a distraction. Remember, it is very important not to take it personally. You aren't doing anything wrong. It is a symptom of the disease.
I called 911 for the first time in my life. Police came, took him to a psychiatric ward for violence. My father handcuffed and put in the back of a patrol car. Horrible, horrible image. And do you know that when they got them there, they had a psychiatry at the hospital. They kept him, in California it's called a 5150. And they held him for, 72 hours for a hold. Couldn't find anything wrong with him. Released him. Brought him home again. He was good for a while. And then he got upset about something else and had a horrific episode that required police intervention. I went through 4 episodes like that.
He's so combative. I mean, he'd be the guy that we move from nursing home to nursing home. I guarantee it. So having him at home is the only option that we have.
Right.
But at the same time, the toll that takes on us is part of the reason I'm sitting here now. So
They know something is happening and what to maintain that control. That's just like with the driving and everything. They want to maintain that control, but they will get beyond it.
I think you learn quickly that confrontation is what you do not want. To back off. Just back off. If they won't do something that you want them to do, come back 5 minutes later and it's a new experience, and they might do it just readily.
When they act out, what, is it attention? Is it they need to go to the bathroom? Is it that they're scared and they're nervous? It's a different surrounding, so they're not sure how to respond. You identify what's going on and you try and address it that way.
Remember, memory loss can create frustration, fear, and uncertainty. So for some, acting out is their only means of communication. Other behaviors you will experience are rummaging through drawers, hiding personal items, repetitive questioning, or wandering.
The husband would get up at night to go to the bathroom and would go down the hall, find the bathroom, but couldn't figure out where to come back to the room. Where was the room? There was a whole series of doors, and he would get lost. They had left the bathroom light on so that he could find the bathroom. But what was the clue to come back to this bedroom? His wife would find him in various bedrooms because he didn't know where else to go. Suggested a technique as simple as putting wallpaper border all the way around the door trim that actually said, "This room is special. Come check this one out."
This little thing is priceless. You put it on the wall, and what I have it is, it's on the mantle on the fireplace, and there's an archway that goes into the bedrooms and the bathroom, this part of the house. See, and this plugs in across the other hall. And being it's on the mantle of the fireplace, it's just that beam that goes right across there. And then this will beep when that's broken.
Oh, okay.
Isn't that neat?
There is a program where you can register the person who has Alzheimer's with a statewide organization, and we give everyone a pamphlet for that. And you have to also report to the police, that you have this person that is your care receiver, and they then sometimes give them a bracelet. And you have to approach that person in the right way so you can put this bracelet on.
There is medicine for a lot of these behavioral issues, and some people are not hooked up with a doctor that is doing them a very good job. So sometimes that's a recommendation from some of the group. Change doctors, someone else. There isn't any magic medicine, but you can experiment, try something else. We did that.
just enjoy the time you have, because who knows what's going to happen the next day or the next 5 minutes, you know? So you just got to live one day at a time.
One of the members of our group says sometimes you have to lie creatively.
I always used what I called therapeutic lying. That means some little untruths that get the job done. I don't see anything wrong with that. And so you just learn that you have to say some things that make sense, because they forget 2 minutes later why.
Oftentimes, coping with everyday routine just requires having a sense of humor.
One of the hardest things I ever did was give my mom a bath. I just, you know, it was like, I know it was so humiliating to her, but it was like, oh my gosh, my mom always gave me a bath. It's like, and she was embarrassed. So we would poke fun at her body parts. And she would giggle, and I would laugh, and it's like, this is okay. She would do it for me, so I can do this. So we laughed through the difficult times.
All these things really, you've got to keep a sense of humor with all this, and smile and laugh, because a lot of the things are funny. They're sad, but they're funny. It's difficult with me taking her out, so for a while I'd get her to the door of the women's room and hope she'd go from there, and she'd stand in a loud stage voice and say, "What do I do now?" So this bothered me greatly early on.
Is that where you went under the table?
As I matured with this,
The last stage of the disease brings the most debilitating behaviors. Your loved one will not be able to speak coherently, if at all. They will not be able to control movements such as swallowing, walking, sitting up, or even holding their heads up. They will need total assistance with daily living. If you haven't already, this is the time to set in motion your plan to move to a long-term care facility.
Generally, people know when that point has been reached. Some use arbitrary cutoff. You know, when mom becomes incontinent, I'm going to admit her to a facility because that's not something I can deal with. Or if they become combative, or if they can no longer walk.
If we had waited, if we'd put it off and said, oh, let's not push the issue, I really do think we would have had a situation in which our mothers certainly, and maybe our father, would not have really been competent to make the decision. So I think that this is one that really did end up being one that was their decision, and we were helping them with it.
Today, there are many choices in facilities that specialize in dementia and Alzheimer's disease. All of these facilities provide their staff training that assures your loved one will be safe, comfortable, and socially and mentally stimulated.
There is no perfect care. You can do the best you can do. And by putting someone in a nursing home, when it comes to that point, you are seeing that they get the best care possible. So I try to help them through those feelings of guilt, because that's a big one. That is a big emotion for caregivers.
Personally, the thing that I really, really appreciate is when our father was in his final illness, we were able to talk with the members of the team here, and they were able to say, here's our reading of the situation, and you know, this probably is a time when you want to change things and get here. They were great.
Yeah, we had the confidence in the staff to trust them, as Ted indicated, to let us know. I mean, we don't have the answers. I mean, we're not here 24/7, and they are. And I think Ted and I were reassured that we could depend on them and trust them to help us through any situation that was needed. And
they've been good.
Yeah, it's been great.
We're not just building the relationship with the resident. What we do here and in any good program is going to be to develop that relationship with the whole family. They need to know that you care.
This is good for her. She is at ease in a situation in which she's not confronted with all this confusion of life. She did not know at this point, a house we've lived in 30 years, didn't know it was our house. I have to show her where to go to the bathroom. Driving in the drive, she thought it was someone else's house, and why are we coming here? So in a residential facility, I think there's a security element. You're just in a kind of a safe area. You can walk around, can't get in any trouble, move things around if you want, and everybody's understanding.
Everybody who has dementia is at a different stage, a different level, and they're going to progress through the dementia process differently. It's important for us to help families to understand that and to give them as much information as we can so they can help enjoy their visits more, they can be more meaningful, maybe not so much for you as an adult child, but for your parent.
When she was first admitted into the assisted living, I was there every day, and I would stay several hours a day. Now I've realized that after about an hour and a half, my visits aren't productive because she gets tired, doesn't want to do a lot, and I end up sitting there staring at her, which makes her uncomfortable and is not the best use of my time. I could serve her better doing something else. So I usually stay about an hour to an hour and a half now when I visit.
When I come to visit, I try to hug her and kind of gives me a sense of what her mood is at the time. Sometimes she's just very feisty and not interested in me at all and wanders off quickly to be with someone else. We almost invariably take a long walk together. And I walk her down the halls and make the loop around the whole place and outdoors when the weather permits. And she's always been very active, and she doesn't sense that we're doing anything except she'll say, "Where are we going?" And I'll just say, "We're taking a walk." And that's about it.
The techniques used in many facilities today are a result of continuing research and training.
It's very frustrating when you can't remember what day it is, or you can't remember what you had for dinner, or even when somebody asks you, "How are you?" and you just can't find the words. And so what we've tried to do in our Memory Enhancement Center is just eliminate the need to answer those questions and to really go where the resident is and to focus on who they are, and where they are is where their memory is still healthy. So some of our residents, while we know a history about them, maybe they have been married and they have 4 children and they were a homemaker or a librarian or a farmer. We know those pieces about them, but maybe some of that isn't where they are today. They may be remembering that they had 2 children and before they sold the farm. And that's where their memory is healthy, so that's where they're focusing today. So we simply go with them where they are. If they mention the farm, we say, "Tell us about the farm."
If we have a resident who believes she's 18 years old and getting, and looking for something, and we ask her, "Well, what's the matter? What are you looking for?" "Well, I'm getting ready to go out on a date." Rather than try and convince that person, "Well, no, you're 80 years old, you're not going on a date," we join in what they're thinking. And we impress upon our staff, "You know what you do then? Well, let's go get you fixed up because you need to be prettied up. Let's go get your favorite dress on." And you join in what they're thinking. Trying to bring them to our reality creates additional confusion, agitation, uncertainty, and there's a potential for conflict because they don't understand.
I do a social history on the residents as they come in, so we know a lot about their background, and we try to develop things that they're familiar with.
We tried to bring up about college days.
Yeah.
Dad went to college in this community here. He got his undergraduate degree here. And as Ted mentioned, we used to talk about, have Dad tell us about some of the World War II stories.
Yeah.
And he was overseas for 3 years during World War II, and Mom is just so busy, it's unbelievable. I mean, every day she's baking muffins, baking cookies, arranging flowers. She's very involved, and she loves it.
They need the opportunity to enjoy who they are and for us to value their experiences. We do that by learning more about them, by talking about those stories and getting them to talk about those stories with us. We do that through memory boxes that are outside of each room and scrapbooks that families will help provide. We do this by having life stories that are available to all the staff to read, to know that You know, this is what Grandma used to call her when she was a child. Because in some cases, Mary may have still been a child in where she's at now. Reality is, the body may have grown old, but the memories are still young.
We have a gentleman who wanted to cut the grass. He wanted to mow the lawn. Well, the staff said, can we get one of those push mowers that, you know, it's not electric or, you know, battery operated, gas operated, or anything like that. It's the old fashioned lawn mower. And my first thought is, oh my gosh, you know, okay, I can see a hand getting hurt or, you know, a foot getting caught or whatever. But, you know, if you know what the risks are and you take as much precaution as you can, why not? Talk about sense of purpose and sense of self. He's accomplishing something. He's adding to his community. He's giving back. That's what life's about.
When I started, I said 21 years ago in the business, we got really no education. They were mixed in with the population. Just had to keep them safe, out of others' rooms, out of others' things. And so I've seen a big change in giving them a better quality of life.
No one did anything from the 1900s to, 15 years ago, really 25 years ago about this disease. So if you look at it in terms of where we were 25 years ago to now, everything that we've really learned about Alzheimer's disease, the treatment approaches, behavior, person-centered care, has happened in the last 15 years. Just imagine what we can do in 15 more years.
The most difficult time is when the family has to let their loved one go in their final days. Because this disease lingers for so long, caregivers feel like they have to say goodbye for a very long time. However, research shows that caregiving does have positive effects. Some gain a new sense of purpose or meaning in life. Others feel the fulfillment of a lifelong commitment to a spouse. An adult child feels they've given back to their parent.
It is hard. It is probably one of the hardest things you do as a person, as a family. But it is so worth it. Every second.
People tell us all the time, we thank God that, that you're here to help us out. And I think, in the same aspect, it's the other way around, because we're able to be a part of that and a part of their lives to try to help them get through this disease as, peaceful as possible.
They mean a lot to us. These caregivers are incredible people. They're working 24 hours. I get emotional when I talk about it, but they're working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And they're incredible. So we gotta help them.
I never looked at life so awesomely as I do now. She taught me that. She taught me that every second is wow.
Someday there may be a cure for Alzheimer's disease. Researchers are working tirelessly, and they believe that if they can find a way to delay the onset of the disease by 10 years or so, that it will virtually be wiped out. As this research continues, and as we learn better ways to take care of our loved ones, remember, you are not alone. There's always help for you and your family. All you need to do is reach out